Hey everyone, this is Malik Graves Pryor with the long-awaited race number 9 footage from the Lucarelli Castaldi Cup series in Prospect Park. This is actually from April 3rd, so my apologies for being late with this footage, because as you can see from the date that it's going up, this happened more than a week ago. Last week just ended up being super busy, and then I raced twice this prior weekend. So, my headspace was in a completely different, in a different area. Saturday was the first in the Trooper David Brinkerhoff series in Coxsackie, New York. That's upstate. And that was just, that was beyond brutal. Epic mammoth proportions, and I'll be talking about that one in the next video upload that I'm prepping, actually as I'm recording the voiceover for this one. And then the following day after that, I did the second Castelli series, also in Prospect Park. So those videos will definitely be coming much quicker than this one, especially now that I have a lot more time. So with that being said, we're gonna get started with this race. So officially, this actually would have been the second in the series, but unfortunately the first race on March 13th was canceled due to severe cold and wind. As I've mentioned in prior videos, it actually takes quite a lot for races to be canceled in New York City. We typically race in rain, wind, cold. Sometimes even light snow. To get canceled in New York City, the weather was really bad. Thankfully the race organizers, they simply transferred everyone's registration from the canceled race on March 13th to this race on April 3rd. And, everything, honestly, it was just peaches and cream. More information about, the race organizers and the sponsors will be in the description, so you can take a look at that and go take a look at them. So, because obviously without them, we would not have the privilege of racing in Prospect Park as often as we do. So, just to give you, some additional background, this was my second race of the weekend. The first race being the CRCA Club race number 2, which I covered in the race 8 analysis video on my channel, which is also linked in the description. So you can, go take a look at that and see, basically how I raced there and then how that impacted what happened in this race. So, coming into this race, I'd done some hard efforts. I'd, done a solo break effort with some hard punchy hits to try and get away. So, I was tired, but I still had some pep in my legs. And I was actually coming in feeling pretty confident. And the reason for that is because, Prospect Park, it's actually an easier course to deal with than Central Park. As you can look at the elevation, it may not look like it from the elevation map, but it's actually pretty much pancake flat. So except for the climb going into Grand Army Plaza, which we call, the gap climb. And that's the one that you can see in the elevation profile below. And then there's the descent on the other side of the park. But the vast majority of the park is just literally, again, like pancake flat. Unlike Central Park, which is, you're climbing pretty much like every other second. But there was also an additional nice wrinkle that was added to this mix as well. One of my friends, he's a Cat 3 already. His name is Johan. And he saw my video commentary on the CRCA Club race number 2. He saw my notes on it. Basically, I was talking with him and I was talking with a few other people about how I tried to unsuccessfully break away. And then, later on discussing my thoughts on joining a team. And he was just like, hey, I'm a Cat 3. I'm still rounding myself into shape. You only have a few points to get to Cat 3. So I'll work for you and help you get those points if the opportunity presents itself. And so, Johan, you cannot believe how humbled and grateful, I am and I remain And to everyone, watching this video, I really was just blown away, because he offered that actually like basically at the start line. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't anticipate it, but it was just like, wow, you're a mensch. And so to have a dedicated rider, basically out there in the field saying that, he was going to basically, for all intents and purposes, end his own race to help me. It was just like, Johan, you're a bro. And I cannot just express how, thankful and humbled I am by the work that you did in this race. So, he was closing gaps, he was stringing the field out, keeping the pace high, etc. So we're actually not going to watch the entire video. I'm going to cut to various segments in the video to show you some of the things that happened, some of the different strategic points in the races, the places where things turned in the race, ultimately, what was the winning move in the race, and so on and so forth. So with that, we're going to skip to later on in the video. So we've skipped ahead. We are now in the second lap, or I should say finishing up the second lap and going into the start of the third lap. And as we're crossing the start-finish line, the bell goes off. And basically that denoted that we were in a preem lap. And so this was a sprint preem lap. And so for those of you that don't know what a sprint preem lap is, basically this means that whoever gets across the finish line first, I think it's the top three placers in the preem, they get a prize. Sometimes it's cash, sometimes it's a tchotchke, etc. But you also get points, and in a series, you can get the green jersey in a series and win the championship for that particular category. Other preems that usually go off are KOM preems. I don't believe that we had a KOM preem in this, but I might be mistaken. But either way, I wasn't looking to go for either the sprint or the KOM preem. Basically, I was actually looking at it as an opportunity to launch my own break attack. So what you can see here is, we're coming through, and everyone is eyeing that sweet that sweet prize at the end of the lap. And so what you're actually going to see, we're going to watch this lap and what unfolds. You can see that as we're going into the downhill, we are 27, 28 miles an hour. But everyone is starting to kind of jostle for position, and the field is starting to string out. And again, the reason for this is because they're trying to make sure that they're in a good position to be able to take advantage of the sprint. So you can see from the wind arrows also that we had a southeasterly wind. So even though it's a downhill, we're also going into a headwind, a direct headwind. So my thing here was just to, stay behind everyone else. Again, I'm not going for the sprint. I'm just keeping myself positioned to take advantage of the carnage that will come because of this preem lap. So I'm just, surfing wheels, taking advantage, going through the downhill, and trying to keep my my heart rate low and just prep myself mentally for the attack that's going to come. And you can see, I'm in the 130s, dropping even further, and so on and so forth. And that's actually Johan right there, who just came up in front of me, and he actually pulled up beside me and he said, "Hey, I'm going to give you another wheel so that you can kind of just relax and not have to spend too much time up close to the front." And I think because he also realized what I was planning, and this is what I was talking about. Like, we gelled really well during this race. It was the first time that we'd actually tried something. We didn't have a plan going in. We just kind of just played off of one another. And he saw what I was doing, and he would make moves, to try and keep me protected and just make sure that I was as protected as I could be. And in other cases, when the field would get too slow, he would go up and try and string things out. So again, Johan, bro, great work on you. So coming through here, you can see actually that right now I'm on the outside of the crosswind section, and I did this actually deliberately. And the reason for that is because I wanted to make sure that going in, I could take stock of what was going on in the field and not be boxed in, just in case anyone tried to make a break for it to get that preem. And the reason for that is because my strategy on this was basically to attack the field as it was trying to sit up after the preem lap finished. And you can see, you know, I'm happy to use some energy. My heart rate went up from like, I think it was like low 130s, upper 120s. Now I'm sitting in the upper 150s. But I'm moving up specifically because I want to make sure that no matter what happens, that I'm in a position to actually be able to take advantage. And so, you know, the other thing that I knew is that because the wind was coming as a crosswind, I knew that as we were making this turn, that it would turn into a tailwind. And so I was just like, it's worth it for me to put out a little bit of extra energy here, you know, just to make sure that I stay in good position to basically be able to take advantage of, like I said, anything that may happen. So we're coming through here. This is, as you can see, the pure tailwind section of the course. And right now I'm just like, I'm exactly where I want to be. And so now it's all about just making sure that I just relax, let my heart rate come back down, settle myself in, and then clear my brain. So as you just saw, everything just started picking up, and the reason for that is because everyone is trying to make basically make a mad dash to get to the bottom of the hill to try and build up as much speed as possible, where we were still basically like a relatively simple false flat. Build up as much speed as possible, and then be able to punch it over and hold that climb over, you know, the effort over gap climb as much as possible, because again, everyone's trying to get that cash. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, there's a group right here, and I'm starting to maneuver my way out. They're going to start trying to separate. And so I got out from behind Liberty Cycle because I saw that he was starting to have some issues with you know, keeping with the pace, and I just latched myself onto Veselka, who then bridged up to this breakaway group. But I wasn't content to just stop there, and so I kept rolling. I'm just, again, eyeing who is up here, you know, whose legs are starting to fade, who is actually going fast, and so on and so forth. And I saw this guy in blue come up around. I was like, okay, that looks dangerous. You know, let me see if anyone responds to that or gets on the wheel, and let me just keep rolling through. But again, you're seeing I'm not going out of the well. I'm not going into like that red zone of like 600 to 900 watts. I was just, let me just keep it steady in the 400s and, you know, stay attached. And so you can see right here, my heart rate for getting over the climb, I'm not in a danger area. You know, I'm actually just holding on, and I'm sitting in that fifth wheel spot, I think, maybe 4 wheels back or so. Again, I'm not contesting the sprint preem. Everyone else probably thinks that I am contesting the sprint preem, but I'm here looking for the advantage to get away in the break. So I'm just going to let all of these guys turn themselves inside out. I'm going to keep myself attached. I just, you know, increase the power a little bit more so that I can stay attached. I looked back to see how far the gap was, and I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly the situation that I wanted. And so we just crossed. The guys right there, as I anticipated, after that hard effort, then they started to sit up a little bit. They started looking around. they're pedaling a little bit, and all I'm doing here is I'm maintaining speed, I'm maintaining my cadence, and I have to, I'm reducing my power a little bit, and then as soon as I get past them, I put in an effort, I bring it up back up, to almost 500 watts, and now it's just like, all right, let's just get this and keep it steady in the 400 to 500 range. If anyone comes with me, that's great. And here's to the rescue. Here's Sam from G4D. He's a really good rider. And he's like, hey, Malik, let's go. He gets on the front. I spike it up a little bit to over 500 watts to attach myself to his wheel, and I was like, this is fantastic. This is exactly the scenario that I was looking for. I'm looking back, the field is definitely in our rear view, and here we have actually a couple of other cyclists that are coming up, but unfortunately, rather than actually coming through and saying, all right, let's all try and work together, because in Prospect Park, because it's actually, it's relatively flat, if you have basically a group of like 4 to 6 riders working together, you will stay away from any field. But because the 2 riders, it was actually, it was an NYCC rider, and that's Julian, one of my other good friends. They just punched right past us. And so I was looking at that and I was like, oh, damn. Literally that was going through my head. I was like, the scenario was perfect. If they had actually come up and instead of like trying to jet past us, had actually come up to the front and then, basically slotted in like Sam did that perfectly. And Sam, if you're watching this, like big thumbs up to you. Like that's how you initiate and form a break. If the 2 of them had done what Sam had done and gotten in front of Sam or gotten in front of me and said, all right, we're gonna ease into this and then bring up the speed and then we start rotating, that break right there, it would have been end of story. Because yes, the field is motivated, and you can see right here, the field is chasing. But the problem is that the field also just spent the last lap chasing down that preem. So the field is already tired from having to do that lap, trying to get that, that sweet prize that we were talking about before. So I'm looking at this and I was just like, okay, as soon as I saw, and again, this is part of just recognizing the different scenarios for breaks and initiating and forming breaks. As soon as I saw the 2 of them come around, NYCC and Julian, and they just, punched it right past, I was just like, this is not going to work. The field is going to track them down with everything they've got, especially because it's 2 riders. And those 2 riders, they're not going to have enough to stay away from a motivated field. Again, 4 to 6 strong motivated riders will be able to stay away from the field even if it is going full tilt. That's just one of the things that I found in doing these races in Prospect Park, where you will put the field in such a deep pain cave to close that gap that you've got, that they will either eventually give up, which I've seen happen, or they will catch, and then that'll actually be an opportunity, especially if you've been able to meter your efforts in a break to counterattack and then punch away and actually stay away. So as you can see right here, just as I said before, we're right back together. We caught NYCC and Julian. Julian's the guy in 503. And so I actually pulled up alongside Sam and I was like, Sam, the field is here, like sit in and recuperate. This is, don't try and do any hero pulls or anything along those lines. That was a great effort. I patted him on the back in the moment. I was like, that was a fantastic effort. And if we had had just, some additional cooperation, that actually would have been, I think a very successful attempt at establishing a break. But, sometimes that's just what happens. You try to establish a break, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So one of the things I'm actually going to point out here, and this is actually also the other part of attacking and counterattacking. So the field just spent a lap chasing down the preem. Then it spent half of the lap chasing all of the break attempts that had gone off after the preem. And so I'm actually thinking, and part of the reason why I didn't fall back into the field is I'm actually thinking that this might actually be a good time to counterattack the field and use the gap climb. So coming up through here, that's why I'm still sitting. I'm kind of in that third or fourth wheel. I'm overlapping with the third rider actually. So we're kind of like, sharing duties. And I'm just looking around and I'm seeing, how's the field looking? And so I let 320 slide in front of me just to give me, a little bit, just a little bit more protection. It is a tailwind, but still, it's just like you still have to fight through some wind resistance. And so, we're actually not going that fast. Again, the last lap, I think we were doing like 27 coming through this section before the gap climb. So I'm looking at the speed. I'm looking at the field behind. It's not quite single file, but it's also, people are clearly not bunching up and looking to make a move going up this climb, especially after what happened the last lap. So as I have thoughts about, jumping here, you'll actually see what happens. And it was actually, just a brilliantly timed move. So you'll see right here, things are starting to slow up. I'm starting to look here. I spiked my power a little bit. And you see actually that one of the riders up front who was sitting second wheel, he put on an attack and spiked it really hard, like really hard. And so that actually, his name is Ben, he goes for this solo attack and he stuck it. That was the winning move. He stuck it solo for the rest of the race. And, I wanted to talk about this because when I saw it in real time, I was like, I can close this down. I can actually get up there and get in with him. But the hesitation that I had, and again, this is part of the lessons that I'm learning as I'm getting better at this sport and really dedicating myself to this sport. Sometimes you have to risk in order to win. And I saw it and I was just like, that looks like a damn good punch. But I have no idea who this guy is. Is this fool's gold, or is this someone who can actually stick that attack? And the reason why I was thinking about this was because of, just remembering the 10-minute solo break effort that I had done in Central Park just the day before that had been brought back. And I was just like, there are, I think like 5 laps to go or something along those lines, or 6 laps to go. Is this someone that can actually stick that attack? And I did not have faith that that would be someone, again, because I didn't know who he was. I was just like, well, maybe he can, but if he can't, that's going to be a massive drain on my energy reserves to try and go with that. But here's the thing. When you look at all of the variables of riding, basically getting a successful break, this is one of those things where, in retrospect, it ticked all the boxes of a perfect attack, and why, in the moment, I should have gone with him because I was right in the perfect position, and I had actually spiked my power, and I just decided, I'll let that go. The check boxes were: 1, the field had just done a full lap to get to the preem. That was the first one, so the field was already going to be kind of tired. 2, the field then spent the next half lap trying to chase down the breaks that had gone after the preem. And so that was the second checkbox, so the field was even more tired. And then 3, that's where the attack went on the hardest part of the course, the gap climb. And so having those 3 variables in play, in my head, my alarm bells were going off because of the attack, but because I also didn't necessarily trust the wheel, I did not want to actually commit a deep reserve, to that effort. Now, when I saw my own effort, and I was just like, okay, I know a few people in this race that, I trust, as it were. So like when Sam came up as an example, I was just like, okay, that's a wheel that I know, like if we actually get into a break, he's not only going to work, but he's also, he's got a power profile that can work well. in this type of effort. So that's why when he came around, I immediately got on his wheel. I was like, all right, let's go, let's do this. I didn't have that same information about the guy, Ben, who actually got away. So, funny enough, Ben and I actually competed in the Green Mountain Stage Race. And you guys have heard me talk about this this near mythical, legendary race that goes off in Vermont every year. And it's actually on for this coming September. I believe they've already updated the website, and the link for that is also going to be in the description. So we actually competed in the Green Mountain Stage Race, and he was in a different field. I was in the Masters 35 plus, I think, and he was in the Open 4-5, and he got second place in the time trial. And so after I looked him up and I saw that, I didn't have to look at any of his other results, but as soon as I saw that he had gotten second place in the time trial, I was just like, yeah. So basically, this is just a situation of just not knowing who I was racing against. And I try to go into every race knowing who I'm racing against, and looking up their histories and looking up their results and things along those lines. And it takes a lot of work to do that. But sometimes you miss people. So I missed him. But hey, it was a great move. It was well timed. It was well executed. And he deserved the win. I mean, again, like, big time kudos to you, Ben. For what you did and being able to stay away from the field. So he actually wrote an article about what was going through his mind during that break and the attack and then the subsequent follow through and ultimately his win. So I'm actually going to link to that in the description so you can read what he had put down. The field ultimately did not successfully, like I said, it did not successfully bring him back. That field just by that point was not motivated to spend the energy to bring him back. We did actually reel back, we reeled back one of the people who did go off, or try to go off with him, I should say. He was I think the person that was first wheel. But Ben was, riding out there alone. And I think, as my coach says, if one person is up the road, the field is generally, probably not going to spend too many bullets, because they're like, well, it's one person. If he can stick it, great. If he can't, well, okay, we only lost one spot. If that had been like a group of 5, then yeah, likely the whole field would have tried to track it down until basically they either failed or they succeeded, one way or the other. So yeah, I wanted to spend some time on that one, because from a strategy perspective, it was one of those things where I'm not kicking myself after it for not going with him, because again, you kind of have to look at things and be like, is this something that I'm willing to potentially sabotage my own race on dead legs? And I've been in that situation before. I've actually gone with attacks before and tried to get into a break that I saw up the road, only to get up the road, to put a massive effort in, and then realize that I was rolling with dead legs who could not hold the effort through. And so now the field is coming through, and I've got nothing left to actually do anything in the field at that point, because I put in so much trying to establish the break. So again, experience is a great teacher. Failure is a great teacher. And it's just one of those things now where it's just like, okay, again, the variables that were at play that I saw, maybe next time just keep an eye out on I guess that internal checklist of all the things that could go well for establishing a successful break and then ultimately sticking it. So that being said, I wanted to point out coming up through here, Johan actually came through and he did he actually did another hero pull to get the field going again, which was, again, that was just, I'm going to show a couple of other times where that occurred. But yeah, this was just one of those situations where anytime the field would slow down, he would go to the front and pepper the field. Sometimes it would be like a minute effort. And he was just doing that again with the intent of, well, if the field, if Malik doesn't get into a break, then I'm going to set him up to try and do some damage maybe in the last lap. So I just wanted to point that out. And then we're actually going to skip ahead, as I had mentioned before, to basically the final lap. And you can see what happened, what were the fruits of Johan's labors throughout the day. So skipping ahead, we're now in the final lap, and I'm sitting in. Johan's actually using his final bullets, just keeping the field engaged and rolling fast. We're on the downhill, but he's basically he's looking here and just not letting people kind of coast down coast down the downhill, but instead having to make sure that they keep an effort to try and keep the field high. So basically what's going through my mind here is, Ben's gone. I didn't know his name at the time, but I looked him up and connected with him on Strava. He's gone, so first place is gone. And so I'm thinking about, okay, what do I need to do in order to get one of the podium spots? And so, I'm thinking about, all right, in Prospect Park, as I had mentioned before, it's basically pancake flat. There is a tiny, bunny. It's like a bunny climb, and you'll see it as we come around. But there's a tiny bunny climb before you hit the gap climb. So I'm thinking about my past efforts in the park. Again, I'm taking this outside line. I'm using just a little bit of energy, to make sure that I move myself up in the field, but it's not that much relative, because I want to stay in that sweet spot of like 5 to 7. But I also know that, again, as we come through, yes, I'm on this outside line, but it'll give me an opportunity to respond to any attacks, but also to be able to just survey the field and not get boxed in on the left-hand side, which is where everyone's trying to stay. Plus, as you can see, even though my heart rate is steadily rising, I'm still in the green zone as far as that's concerned. So I'm in that sweet spot that I think I'm sitting maybe 5th wheel or so, or like 5 to 7. Like that's a great sweet spot coming into the end of the race. Just staying patient and letting the moment come. So now the crosswind is basically ended, and we're now in a tailwind. So I'm looking at the speed as we're coming through here, and I'm like, the speed has started to come down. And that's the last thing that I want, because I don't want this to be a bunch sprint, a field sprint, because that's the worst outcome for me, since, as I showed you in my last video, I am not a sprinter by any stretch of the imagination. So what's going through my head is actually what happened the prior day in Central Park. And you saw this, and I'm actually going to show you a snippet of the video when I did the initiation of that break attempt going up Harlem Hill. As coming through here, I'm sitting 3rd wheel, and I'm thinking, okay, I've been in a similar situation, and you can see this is the break attempt that initiated that 10 to 12 minute breakaway. We're just cresting, the bottom of Harlem, or I should say getting to the bottom of Harlem Hill, and then I just pulled away from the field and then punched hard and maintained a 15-second effort, at over 820 watts or so. That was my average there. And then for 30 seconds, as I'm coming around, I'm averaging over 740 watts. And so you can see I was able to just punch away from the field in honestly a way that looked very similar to what Ben had done to the field, I think in the 3rd lap in Prospect Park. So, my goal here was, what was going through my head was, if I can do something similar here, but just string the field out, then when we hit the gap climb, which is it's not nearly the grade as Central Park, and it's also not as long, then that can be the winning move. That can be how I separate from the field and just give myself a few seconds so I can avoid a field sprint. So coming back to the Prospect Park footage, this is exactly what was going through my head. Again, you can see I'm starting to move it up, 450, 550, 600 watts. But again, my goal here was not to punch away from the field and to spook the field. My goal here was to make sure that the field got strung out. So we're now just over the bunny climb, and you can barely see it in the video, but it is a bunny climb, and it just finished. Now we're on the little downhill portion of the bunny climb before it flattens out. And so you can see I'm actually metering my efforts. I'm actually not even looking at my Garmin. I can just go by feel at this particular point, but I'm like, I know I'm doing threshold efforts, like that 370 to 390 range to 400 watts. And the goal here, as you can see right here, was keep the field strung out, but not like put myself into a deep pain cave, so that if anything, I would actually have the ability once we hit the hill to then hit it and then separate myself from the field. So I just took a moment to bring my wattage down just a little bit into the 200s. And then as we hit the bottom of the gap climb, you can see, boom, I punch it up, and then I'm over 770 watts. And so, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm shaking my bike and I'm like trying to do everything to summon the type of effort that I know that I can do, getting up into that 850 to 900 watt range, and it's not happening. And it's like coming up right here, I'm like, oh no, my legs are dead. They're not going to respond. And you can see right here, this person that just came around, he actually got second place. He did what I was trying to do, and my legs were not responding in the moment. And so you can see my power just cratered from the 500s down into 300s, 200s, and eventually down into, I think it might have gotten into the 100s, but I was fried. And I got spit out the back badly, as you can see by the field. And basically came in toward the end of the pack. So somehow I wasn't the last finisher. I'm not sure exactly how that played out, but it is. So basically I miscalculated my ability to replicate that kind of punchy effort. It probably would happen, and talking with my coach was, you do a punchy effort like that, and then you go for a long drag in race situations, it's like a 37-mile race the day before, that's going to sap something off. And so I basically didn't have access to, the top 20% of my power when I was trying to summon it. It gave me better insight into my capabilities, but it also gave me some insight into how I could help a sprinter. So if that had been a sprinter from my team on my wheel, then I would have actually been able to drop them off with that same type of steady ramp effort. So afterward, I was actually deeply apologetic to Johan about what had happened, but he was just like, look, you know what, you did what you could, and that's all you could do. So this was our first attempt at trying anything with another player in the field. So he's like, hitches are to be expected. So, it was definitely a race with a lot of learning, and something that I can take away, going forward. So, with that being said, I just again wanted to thank Johan for opening my eyes even further about the power of teammates in this great sport, for being a big-time bro with your efforts and setting me up. I just didn't have the ability to, execute in the moment. The strategy was good, but for that particular day, the execution was not, unfortunately. So with that, we're at the end of this video. So if you enjoy these videos, obviously, please like, comment, subscribe. There's definitely more to come this season, and thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.